Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined by my partner in everything Packers, Wes Hodkowitz. We're coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field to preview, Wes, Packers-Bears 2.0. We just previewed this game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So this one, as one of my favorite musical artists of all time would say, Saturday night's all right for fighting.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. Soldier Field, Saturday night, Packers and Bears, first place in the NFC North on the line once again. I want to start, because we don't need to obviously go over everything with regard to the Bears again. We just did that 2 weeks ago. I want to get your overview of this game and the matchup. I have some thoughts to share as well, and then we're going to dive right into keys to victory. So what is your sort of overarching perspective on this matchup coming up Saturday night?
Yeah, this is a talented Bears team that has played well at home this season. And I thought there wasn't a lot to pull out of that game against Cleveland. But the one thing that I really stuck to was Ben Johnson had those guys ready to play in some pretty bad conditions. The fact that they didn't just get up on the Browns and coast, the fact that they finished the way they did it in that weather and that temperature, you could tell how hungry this team was to not only get that 10th win of the year, but also bounce back from that loss against Green Bay. And I'm sure with Micah Parsons now officially being done for the season, the Bears are going to feel like the Packers are, the wounded animal here that they could potentially get one up on. But the other thing that stood out to me too with that win over Cleveland was, I think there's been a regression there with Cleveland's defense to a certain extent from the unit that the Packers faced back in September.
Yeah.
But the Bears did kind of what they did against Green Bay too, in that they don't break like these big, long runs. I think DeAndre Swift's longest run was 17 yards. But they, again, moved the chains appropriately. We'll get into the keys to victory, but the fact is that this is going to once again be down to third and manageable, winning in the situational phases of the game. And for the Bears having as disappointing of a loss as that was against Green Bay here at Lambeau, I don't think you really could look for a better get-right opportunity than the one they had against the Browns.
Yeah, I think that fell into place nicely for Chicago. Meanwhile, the Packers, after the big victory over the Bears, had to go on the road, a long road trip, and play, one of the best teams, if not maybe the best team in the AFC out in Denver. I've been thinking about this a bit, Wes, and I said this in my live midweek chat on Wednesday because it just sort of came to me in the moment, and the more I thought about it, the more I sort of have the courage of my convictions to say this here. So I'm going to say it again on this show. I think this game, for a number of reasons, is the toughest game the Packers will play to date, this trip to Chicago. And the number of reasons, one is what we've just been talking about, that coming off of the game at Lambeau Field, which the Packers won, it was a big victory, but the Bears certainly did not leave Green Bay with their tail between their legs or anything like that. They knew they were right there. They had an opportunity at the end to get the tying or possibly winning touchdown if they had gone for two. They felt like they came into Green Bay with a plan, and they executed, and they just came up a little bit short. So the Bears left Green Bay very, very confident. As you said, it fell into place for them. They had a get-right game against the Cleveland Browns. They were at home last week, and basically by the end of the first quarter out in Denver, the Bears were all sitting at home with their feet up, resting and getting ready for this short week, not having to travel again. They get the game at home on Saturday night, coming off of a blowout where, quite frankly, I think most of the players on the Browns gave up by the end of the first quarter. They didn't want to be out there in the freezing wind chills and the crappy weather off Lake Michigan there. Meanwhile, the Packers played a full 60-minute knockdown, drag-out game against a great team, and then left Denver with a whole bunch of injuries, the biggest one being to Micah Parsons, a lot of uncertainty with regard to Zach Tom and Evan Williams. Things are looking in a positive direction for Christian Watson as far as him being able to come back and play in this game. But you add it all up, and then for the Packers, it's a short week, just like it is for the Bears, but the Packers are the team going on the road to play the division rival. And then on top of all that, This literally is the biggest game at Soldier Field since the double doink in the playoffs 7 years ago. The Bears have not hosted a game of this magnitude for 7 years. The crowd in Chicago is going to bring it on Saturday night. The Packers are in a really tough spot here with everything that has gone on, all the circumstances that are surrounding this game. I think this is the biggest challenge that the Packers have faced as far as an individual game, the biggest challenge they have faced to date in the 2025 season.
I like how you put that statement together, that monologue, that take, as some people might say. And I will offer this up as well. While I do not disagree with a single thing that you said there, this is also a massive opportunity, because for the Green Bay Packers on paper, this is going to be their most difficult test of the season. But after this, you're coming home against the Baltimore Ravens, and then you're finishing the year at Minnesota. We'll see where things are at for Minnesota. They looked better last week, but they are what their record says they are, right? For the Chicago Bears, this is a gauntlet coming up. They've had some softballs throughout the course of this year, but they've kind of peaked towards the end of the season, as you would want a team that's going to compete for a division title and a playoff spot and with championship aspirations to peak. But they get Green Bay at home. And then you got San Francisco. Then you got the Detroit Lions at home, and the Lions are going to have all to play for here down the stretch.
Very possibly, yes.
The Bears, for as much as this is a pivotal game for the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears have everything they work for on the line as well on their side of things. And that's what leads to these high-stakes matchups and the reason why this game was put in Saturday night primetime on Peacock. Because this is what everybody wants to see. They want to see division rivals, the longest rivals here in the National Football League, going head-to-head in competitive football. And like you said, it's been a few years since it's kind of laid out this way. The Bears have been trying, clawing, scratching to get themselves back into contention. They felt like getting Caleb Williams was the first piece, right? They go and hire Ben Johnson as the second piece.
Right.
And here they are at already double-digit wins in his first year as head coach. And he laid down the gauntlet last offseason saying that he enjoys beating the Packers. He enjoys beating Matt LaFleur. Now you got to back that up. So I think the narratives, the storylines, it's all there in this matchup. But for as challenging as this opportunity is for the Green Bay Packers, it is an opportunity regardless. And I am very, very excited to watch that play out on Saturday.
Yeah, I am too. And I want to clarify as well, just because I said I believe this is the Packers' toughest test, biggest challenge to date in the 2025 season. I will say, from what I have seen and I have heard around this building over the last few days, there is no lack of confidence that amongst these players, amongst these coaches, that they can make the adjustments needed without Micah Parsons, that if certain guys can't play, that they have the depth, they are going to go out there and put themselves in a position to be able to win this game.
Yep.
There's no lack of confidence for as big a challenge as this is. One other quick clarification. I believe you said Peacock. The game is on Fox on Saturday night.
Oh,
I think
sorry.
the Peacock game is next week against Baltimore. Just so that our listeners and viewers don't get confused. Hey, it's that time of year around here, folks. We're just trying to stay afloat. But with that, Wes, let's move right into. Unless maybe I should just take care of some sponsor business here first, and I'll let you catch.
What
your
a
breath.
terrible error! We got all these Saturday games now that we're playing. It's on 85 different
networks. You don't know what day of the
networks.
week it is. We got the holidays coming up. Like this,
like if you roll that back,
we're all over the place, man.
If
We're
Hannah
all
would
over the
roll
place.
that back in the studio, like I'm so confident when I'm saying, like I'm making this big point, like this game on P. Why did I even say that? I should just stopped at prime time.
Yeah.
Just
all right. We got to pay some bills, folks, and I need to let him recover for a couple of seconds. So let's hear a quick word from our sponsors. SiriusXM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50-plus years of better. Pit Boss Grills, the official grill of Packers tailgating at Lambeau or at your house. Take your game day to the next level with a Pit Boss wood pellet grill. Pit Boss Grills available at Menards. Hey Packers fans, we always knew Lambeau Field was a wonder, but now it's official. Learn more about all the wonders of Wisconsin at travelwisconsin.com/wonders. Welcome back to Packers Unscripted. Wes is still in recovery mode, but we need to move on very quickly here to the keys to victory. And there were a lot of them that we laid out 2 weeks ago, Wes, for the first matchup between these two teams, and I think a lot of them aren't going to change as we continue this discussion here. But what rises to the top of the list for you?
I don't want to steal your thunder because you were the one that originally mentioned this week. But if you're asking, and we're going to start this conversation on what the biggest key to victory is, it's about how the Packers attack, contain, and control Caleb Williams in this game. It is. I mean, this is the guy that the Bears have been looking for at the quarterback position, but he's still young, and he's made mistakes. He made a few mistakes in that game against Green Bay, in addition to how it ended, but even prior to that.
Yeah.
But you saw it, man, when he was extending plays, when he was moving out of the pocket. There are those Aaron Rodgers type attributes to his game and his ability to create magic off of a scramble play. This is going to be a guy the Packers are going to have to contend with for the next 10 years. I truly believe that. I think he is the dude that they've been looking for. But at the same time, it's not like this unstoppable force. I mean, when you look at the completion percentage this year, when you look at some of the mistakes he has made, this is still a young guy coming into his own. So the Packers have to be smart with how they rush him, because if you get guys behind him and you're letting him have that advantage in terms of personnel, he's going to hurt you. He can extend plays with his feet when he's scrambling. I think the pass rush is going to be really important, but I also think the secondary, the plaster at the second level. There's so many things that play into this. And Green Bay also needs to contain their running game to the best that they can to try to make Caleb Williams one-dimensional. So if the Packers, in this game, my big headline thing, if Jordan Love has a better passer rating at the end of this game than Caleb Williams, I think the Packers win.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And what you said about Williams is definitely spot on in terms of the need to contain him. I mean, we saw it. I didn't see this so much last year in Caleb Williams' rookie year as much as I saw it a couple of weeks ago. There is a stronger zip and a confidence and a conviction on his throws when he's outside the pocket versus when he's inside the pocket. And I'm not saying he's a terrible quarterback in the pocket. I'm just saying when you watch it, there's less conviction, there's less self-assuredness in terms of what's going on out there. When he gets outside the pocket and sort of gets to play this loose and free game, that's where he's in his comfort zone. And then when he's in his comfort zone, he's letting it rip. I mean, that ball is coming out with authority. He's putting it right where he wants to. I mean, when I think back to the one from where we were in the press box, it was when the Bears were going from right to left, and he scrambled to his right and then put that ball along the sideline for Cole Kmet down, towards the pylon on the far side of the field. That was an incredible throw.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
And it's the kind of throw that we don't necessarily see him make from the pocket. It's the kind of throw he has the confidence and the conviction to make outside the pocket. So I'm with you on everything there. And yes, the Packers need to contain the running game better. As we talked about 2 weeks ago, you can't let the Bears live in 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3 all day by just cranking out 4 and 5 yard runs all the time. So that's another piece of this. Here's the one, though, that I want to come back to, because having already gone through this first Packers-Bears matchup and you see how it plays out, and then everything that's changed with Green Bay with the injuries, and now Parsons won't be a part of things, et cetera, it still comes back to, against this defense, you have to protect the football. You can't lose sight of that, because the Bears got the one turnover early against the Packers, the interception in the first quarter from Jordan Love. Then the Packers protected the ball after that. Well, then what did they do last week against Cleveland? They got 3 interceptions of Shedeur Sanders, and the Browns were never in the football game, right? This is a defense that absolutely thrives on taking the ball away. But it's a defense that, in my opinion, and the Packers proved it 2 weeks ago, continues to be vulnerable to yards and points if they are not taking the ball away. The Packers put up 4 touchdowns against them and had a turnover and a pair of 3 and outs. They left a fair amount out there, even with putting 28 on the board against the Bears the first time. but you're not going to be in a position to do that again if you have any turnover issues. And the Packers are coming off of a game in which they did turn the ball over 2 times, and it was the Packers' first multi-turnover game there in Denver in quite a while for this offense.
Excellent points all around. And to build on that, too, a little bit, when you're looking at defensive keys to victory, the Packers have to finish better. They've actually started these first halves they've had this season. There's not really time to dive into this stuff. But I mean, how many times, Mike, have you and I come in here on a Tuesday and talked about punt, takeaway, punt, field goal, punt? Like, the Packers in the first half have been able to control a lot of these games for the most part. It's been the second half where offenses have gotten rolling. Caleb Williams and the Bears got rolling in the second half. It took the Keyshawn Nixon interception at the end to be able to finally stymie them a little bit. Last week, Bo Nix starts getting rolling in the third quarter, and Green Bay isn't able to finish it. So much was focused on Micah Parsons and the injury, and understandably so. This guy's one of the best players in the National Football League. But there were numerous chances for the Packers to actually get back in that game, to win that game. And,
no doubt.
And on both sides of the ball, they didn't take care of it. So the Packers did get some stops late, so credit to them on that. But when the momentum turns, you have to find a response. A lot of times it ends up being a takeaway, but as we saw, it can be Kingsley Enagbare making a heads-up play down the line of scrimmage and getting a runner down on 3rd and short.
Yeah.
Those are the type of moments that Green Bay is going to need in this one if they're going to prevail.
Yeah, I think you're right on there.
In addition to the fact, that's also what would best solve the crowd issue. Because we've seen, in my time on the beat, how many times have we gone in there where the beginning of that game, it is rough, it is rowdy, people are rocking.
Yeah.
And then it's down to pin-droppingly quiet when things don't go that way. The Packers got to take them out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you remember Matt LaFleur's first game as head coach. It was that Thursday night kickoff opener, 2019, and the Bears, brought out their anthem singer who just belts it out, from start to finish, and they kind of do the old Chicago Stadium for the Blackhawks games where the crowd is just kind of roaring along while the anthem is being sung. That's kind of what I'm thinking they're going to do on Saturday night because of the magnitude of this game. And as I said, this is the biggest game in Soldier Field in 7 years. They haven't had a game to get this hyped about, to get this excited about. Yes, the 2019 opener was a big one, but it was just week 1 at the end of the day, right? This is a game with so much on the line, and it's an environment the Packers are going to have to deal with. That being said, I thought the Packers dealt very well with a tough environment in Denver until the injuries started to hit and things started to kind of go the wrong way. And that'll be really the big test in this one for Green Bay. Is it's going to be a game of ebbs and flows. When the game starts to shift the other direction and the Bears start to get some things going their way, can the Packers stem the tide? Can they stop it? Can they flip it back around? Because that's what did not happen against the Broncos. Looking at the big picture as far as the standings, the Bears are 10-4 in the NFC North. The Packers are 9-4-1. Basically right where we were 2 weeks ago, where the Packers are a half game back and they can vault ahead of the Bears into first place with a victory. If the Bears get the win, the Bears would be a game and a half up on the Packers with just 2 games left to go, and they would absolutely be in the driver's seat for the division title. From the Packers' overall playoff perspective, to get a spot in the dance, in the tournament, as they say, the Packers need 1 victory and they need 1 loss by the Detroit Lions. So that will put a lot of eyeballs on Sunday when the Packers are not playing on Detroit. The Lions hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are coming off of the short week. They had the Monday night victory over Miami. The Lions are playing for their season, playing for their playoff lives here. But this is a really interesting, again, much like Green Bay and Denver last week, Pittsburgh and Detroit, AFC versus NFC matchup, 2 teams with a lot to play for late in the season. And from a Packer fan perspective, it's like, hey, cheer for your old quarterback Aaron Rodgers to take it to an old division rival.
Did you have a chance to watch Monday night's game against Miami?
I did not.
Okay. Maybe you saw some of the highlights. I'm sure a lot of people that watch Unscripted do. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's having a lot of fun out there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the post-game interview and him, doing the Monday Night Football, like all that stuff. It was watching his mannerisms on the field. One thing about seeing Aaron Rodgers play quarterback for 20 years and covering him for a decade, like I was able to, and you even longer, is you know his idiosyncrasies and when he's on the field. People make certain things about the way he responds to stuff, and they make headlines out of it. It's really about watching the small things with him. Not necessarily to understand when he's upset, but when he's really happy. That was about as joyous as I think I've seen Aaron Rodgers playing football, maybe going back to his time in Green Bay. He looked like a guy that was just enjoying and living in every bit of the moment. And I don't know what the situation is. I know he had the wrist there. I don't know how his body's feeling, but that seemed like a turn back the clock kind of performance against Miami. So that being said, now he's going up against a Detroit Lions team that defensively has a lot of questions to answer after what happened against the Rams.
Yep.
I think I'm not going too far out on a limb saying this, and I don't want to go as far as saying that the Lions are a shell of themselves, but it just seems like in every area where they were really good last year, they're just a little bit less, right? Offensively, they're just not quite as potent. Defensively, some of the issues they had at the beginning of the Dan Campbell era have sort of resurfaced in explosive plays. Now, they have a lot of injuries, particularly in the secondary.
Yeah, they've been banged up on defense all year. That has definitely been an issue for them.
Yeah, and just basically the scene I'm trying to set here is when you look at the way that Rodgers is playing and the relationships he's formed. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is with Pittsburgh now and had a touchdown last week. I mean, it's just there's an explosive element to this team, and they also understand what's at stake for them and trying to outpace Baltimore here for what likely will be the only spot in the playoffs that the AFC North will be afforded, right?
Yeah.
So, I think it's going to be fantastic to watch and just seeing exactly what Rodgers can do during this final stretch of what will or will not be his final year in the NFL.
Yeah, and it feels like on the other side, it feels like Pittsburgh's defense has just sort of been through this up and down roller coaster type year. And I disagree with you a little bit as far as the Lions on the offensive side. I think offensively they're still as dangerous and as explosive and potent as they've been. It's just there's so much pressure on their offense. They're being relied upon to go out and score 40 points because the defense is so banged up and struggling to that extent. But with that collection of weapons, Gibbs and not having Laporta is definitely an issue for their offense. But Gibbs and St. Brown and Jamison Williams and Jared Goff at the controls and everything, that offense, if the Lions are somehow able to get into the playoffs when this is all said and done, that offense will be a dangerous one to deal with.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's defense, I think 28th right now in the NFL. So I mean that is a massive opportunity. It could end up being a little bit of a shootout there. So the one thing I'll say, and you're absolutely right about the weapons that the Lions have. It's been watching the investment. When you go back to 2021 and 2022, they built everything around that offensive line. In watching that kind of get dinged up, and then obviously
that's the one area, because they still have the tackles with Sewell and Decker, but that having to revamp that whole interior of the offensive line, and then it sounded like Frank Ragnow was going to come out of retirement, and then that didn't work because he failed the physical and all of that. The revamping of the interior of their offensive line has not gone the way they wanted, which is partly also why I think there's been more of Jahmyr Gibbs and the outside running and less of the David Montgomery like inside running, because they're not as stout in between those tackles as they've been in the past. One other game I just want to get your thoughts on quick, because it is a big one. It is actually Thursday night football, the first one of this week 16 in the NFL. The Rams are at the Seahawks. These two teams are tied for first place in the NFC West. The winner of this game is absolutely in the driver's seat to get the number one seed in the NFC and that first round bye that would come with it. It wouldn't be clinched by any means, but the winner of this one that takes over first place in that division is going to be sitting on top of the conference and in control of their destiny in terms of trying to nail down that number one seed. We heard last night that the Rams had plane issues and all this. They didn't get into Seattle until much later than they wanted, so we'll see what potentially that means. And Devontae Adams is doubtful for the Rams. I mean, Puka Nacua is still having, a whale of a year, and Matthew Stafford's, kind of one of the top candidates for MVP and everything. But your thoughts on this Rams and Seahawks matchup? Because the first time they met, statistically, the Seahawks kind of dominated the Rams, but Sam Darnold turned the ball over a bunch of times, and with the takeaways that the Rams defense was getting, that's what allowed them to pull out a close victory there when all the other stats were heavily in favor of the Seahawks. Now the Seahawks are back at home for the rematch, and I'm very curious to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, I mean, it's watching Puka Nacua work, and then obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, you're talking about two of the top up-and-coming receivers in this league. Probably the guys, if they stay healthy, you and I are going to be talking about here in 5 years as being the faces of the National Football League.
Yeah, and I think, sorry to interrupt you, but we talk about MVP race and whatnot all the time. Jackson Smith-Jigba is not being talked about in the MVP race, but this is a guy who could be that Offensive Player of the Year candidate in the NFL. I mean, he's having that Christian McCaffrey type year from the past, from the 49ers, where you're not talked about as the MVP, but everybody knows you are a major, major piece to what your team is doing.
And you don't become the top NFC fan vote getter for the Pro Bowl, and you're not a quarterback. That's pretty impressive that's not coming out of nowhere. So yeah, it's going to be a huge football game. And you've come to expect this with the NFC West. In the month of December, there's been numerous times where teams have been double-digit wins, having to kind of vie against one another, not only for the division title, but what sometimes has led to the bye in the first round. So that is going to be great theater. The thing I like the most about this slate of games is I'm trying to hold off a sneeze. I think I'm going to be successful. Is the fact that when you look at last week, right? Remember I was saying to you, there were so many quote-unquote layup games with the contending teams like Chicago facing Cleveland.
Yeah.
Every single team that I think is in the playoff hunt has a consequential football game this week. And I would even pair that down to the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against Washington, trying to get their season back on track. They've had all these dud finishes, in the last few years. They're trying to, mount something here to just close the door on that division. But you got the NFC South, the best 2 out of 3, it feels like, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Carolina. Monday Night Football. Suddenly now there's a consequential game there for Phillip Rivers and the Colts, going up against San Francisco?
San Francisco, yeah.
Over and over and over again. It's like every single one of these dominoes that fall, this is what is going to be in 2 weeks, not only setting the playoff field, but probably in a couple cases determining who's in and who is out.
Yeah, there's potentially a lot of shifting going on in terms of the NFC playoff race, just with all these matchups that are out there in Week 16. You got a prediction, Rams or Seahawks?
I am going to go with Seahawks in this one. And the main reason for that is Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua almost has twice as many receiving yards as Devontae Adams, but Devontae has 14 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's their red zone guy.
Yeah, he is.
So if he's not available, and with that defense that they've put together in Seattle, as much as we talk about what Darnold and Smith and Jigba and all these guys have built offensively, the crux of this team and the reason why that decision was made to hire McDonald was they wanted that defense there.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of those Gus Bradley units that were with the Seattle Seahawks in the early 2010s. And I just feel like in this particular matchup, this one's going to tilt towards the Seahawks' favor.
Yeah, I think it kind of does too with the Seahawks playing at home. But the one thing I will say is that, and this is what was proven out in the first matchup between these teams, is that the Rams have an awfully good defense as well.
They do.
And
they've got that thing back on track.
Yeah. So that's the one piece of this that's definitely intriguing. But we got to go because we got all kinds of other videos and recordings to do and everything today to get through this short week before hopping on the plane to Chicago. So we're going to call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to follow all of our coverage of the team and of Saturday night's big game from Chicago. We'll both be there. We will have it all for you on Packers.com. For Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.